Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together, Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakta Bhavati Nashtake Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadasi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Sha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Navashe Shushunivadi Pashatade Shatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gautase Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopish Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for today's discussion from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter number 28. There are 44 verses. We won't be covering the whole chapter today. I will be discussing in two parts. And today's main theme will be, first is about how one can attain success through Ashtanga Yoga. And if time permits, then we'll go to the beautiful features of the Lord as described by Kapila Muni, because Ashtanga Yoga, one of the very important limb of Ashtanga Yoga is dhyana, on what you meditate. So Kapila Dev describes the object of meditation as a Supreme Lord, and then there's a beautiful description of his form of spiritual world like that. We might cover that, we may not cover that. I kind of got late because I was just preparing some thoughts on the concept, on the topic of Mayavad and impersonalism. Over here also Prabhupada mentioned, then I began to think, there's so many times Mayavad and impersonal word is used. At times it is used jointly, you can say, together. What is exactly Mayavad and impersonalism? I'll make a whole presentation on it. I just started work today morning on it. I have put down some things, not a complete thing, but it'll give you some idea. But maybe in future I'll make a whole topic of how to understand and why Prabhupada at times use word Mayavad and impersonalism and kind of creates a confusion. It looks like confusion, but what is this terminology? So anyways, let's begin with it. Somebody can share the screen for the shlokas. I'll only share the screen when I have to. Oh, how would I share the screen without going to Zoom? If I send in Zoom, then sharing gets halted. Okay. Okay. I'll have to sign in the Zoom then. Give me a quick second, everyone. Although I don't have to share now. So, TK, when I have to share the presentation, then I'll sign in. So let's begin with it. Chapter number 28. Somebody can, I wish you can share the shlokas on the screen. Text number 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. We'll recite together. Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshay. There is a second sound coming. Who's logged in here? Sabi jasya nipatmaje mano yeneva vidhina prasannam yati satpatham. Word to word meaning, at least for one verse, will begin. All this is an overview. We don't go into details, but at least for one verse, we'll do that. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the personality of God has said, Yogasya, of the yoga system, Lakshanam, description, Vakshay, I shall explain, Savijasya, authorized, Nip Atmaji, O daughter of the king, Manaha, the mind, Yena, by which, Eva, certainly, Vidhina, by practice, Prasannam, joyful, Hyati, attains, Satpatham, the path of the absolute truth. For those who are managing online, this third canto, 28th chapter, verse number 1, Vedabase. Translation purport was drawing based A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The personality of God had said, My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. So, what yoga system can you think of? Sounds like Bhakti Yoga? The object of it is to concentrate the mind. What yoga system? There's Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Yoga, and Yoga. What yoga does it talks about? Concentrate the mind. Dharana Dhyana, so that's part of Ashtanga Yoga. By practicing the system, one becomes joyful and progressively advanced towards the path of the absolute truth. Beautiful puppet, reading some part of the puppet. The yoga process explained by Lord Kapila Dev in this chapter is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the law says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, verse number 47. Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatina antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yamam sami yukta tamomataha. That's the point. And the next paragraph talks about how Ashtanga Yoga means Ashta Anga Yama Niyama Yama Niyama Asana Pranayam Pratyahara Dharana Dhyana and Samadhi. These are the 8 steps involved into it. All right. So Kapil Dev says, My dear mother, I'm going to instruct you on the system of yoga whose objective is to concentrate the mind. And now the instruction begins. So they're going to be around, let me just find out how many. They're going to be some around 20 instructions. It's very famous 10 instructions, 5 instructions. So there are 20 instructions which are given by Kapila Dev on the subject matter of practicing yoga properly. Okay, Prabhupada presents an idea in a way that it is equally important for a bhakti yoga practitioner. So let's take a look at text number 2. Swadharmacharanam shaktya vidharmacha nirvartanam daivalabdhena santosha atma-charanarchanam. So the 4 things which are mentioned in this. First, okay, I'll just read the translation, take otherwise too much time. So Swadharma Archanam Shaktiya, one should perform his prescribed duty. Can you imagine how important it is? It begins with practice of yoga, begins with practice of Varnashrama Dharma. One should practice. There's no meaning of yoga unless you're not engaged in your prescribed duty. And look what the verse says first, further. The very first point, engage according to your prescribed duty. Dharma acharanam shaktya. According to one's ability, one should perform his prescribed duty. Vidharma cha nirvartanam, which means vidharma, vikarma, which means vidharma is vikarma. Unauthorized activities should be given up. Nirvartanam is avoided. So one should not perform what is not prescribed duties. Daival labdhen santosha, and one should be satisfied with what one attains by performing his prescribed duty. Santosha. Atmavich chana archanam, and atmavit. This is tattvadarshinaha. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina. Tattvadarshina, atmavit. These are the same thing. Atmavit means, with means to know. Atma means one who knows herself. So atmavit charana archana means one should go and take shelter of the lotus feet of such a bona fide spiritual master who is atmavit, who is brahma bhuta prasana atma na sochati na kankshati. Now when you talk about atmavit, it doesn't mean only knowing the soul, that I'm not the body but spirit soul. Srila Prabhupada gives a beautiful example in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One cannot be self-realized without having the realization of the absolute truth. Why? As you wake up in the morning, you don't only see yourself in the mirror. When you see yourself in the mirror, yes, you see yourself in the mirror, but you also recognize and realize the sun has risen up. Only because of sunlight you're able to see. So your ability to realize yourself depends on the realization of the absolute truth. So Atmavit here refers to the one who is Krishna conscious personality, like that. So one should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability, avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much as gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord. One should worship the lotus feet of spiritual master. What it got to do with yoga? Any thoughts? Of course, the subject matter will become extended, but at least let's have a little discussion. What it got to do with yoga system? Performing your prescribed duties and be content with whatever results you get. A very similar verse comes in Ishopanishad and numerous verses in Bhagavad Gita. So Bhakti Shastri students, remember what is the verse in Ishopanishad? Kuruvan eveha karmani jiji visikshyatam samaha evam tvam naneto sasti na karma lipyatena. Kuruvan eveha karmani jiji visikshyatam samaha. Hit a sanctuary, continue performing your prescribed duties. Jiji visikshyatam evam tvam naneto sasti. You have no other alternative. Na karma lipyatena re. So keep performing your prescribed duty. What consciousness? Ishvasyam midam sarvam yatkincha jagatayam jagatena taktena bhanjita magrada kasya svidhanam. And the understanding of the absolute truth, and be content with what you get. That's the first verse says. The Lord has allotted everyone's quota. Continue performing your prescribed duty. You combine both the verse, you have text number 2. What it got to do with yoga? All of you Bhakti Yoga practitioners, you have 2 hours of chanting. Maybe 1 hour you perform, maybe in reading and hearing. We have this hearing, so all right, 3 hours. Let's say 4 hours. 20 hours, in other 20 hours, you spend 8 to 10 hours performing your prescribed duties. Now, if you say, actually it's all Swadharma. Prescribed duty is Swadharma. Swadharma and Nitya Dharma. So you divide the 24 hours in 8. So a set of 8 hours is for body maintenance. Another set of 8 hours is ideally for your spiritual well-being. Nitya Dharma, another 8 hours should be for your occupational duty. Let's call that Swadharma. So if you see at this point of time, our 3 to 4 hours is only for Nitya Dharma. Majority of our time goes in performing Swadharma. And here Kapil Dev begins with his first instruction on practicing yoga is performing your prescribed duties in a right consciousness. Do you see the connection? Do you understand the connection? Yes or no? Or do you see the connection? How many of you see the connection of importance of prescribing one's prescribed duties and being content with whatever comes has with the yoga system? How many of you see the connection? How many of you don't see the connection? How many of you don't understand what Kapil Dev is speaking? बोल रहे हैं, बोलने तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है, हम तो वही करेंगे. So the idea is, because we have taken to the practice of yoga, the Shastras do not talk about giving up one's prescribed duty and going to the forest. That's not the idea. Which means wherever you are, continue performing, living your life with the performance of your Swadharma and perform your yoga, practice of re-establishing your relationship with the Lord. So when you have to perform your Swadharma, which you cannot give it, you just cannot give up your Swadharma like that, unless you're really situated at Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma stage, then maybe you can give it up. Prior to that, you cannot give it up. So if Swadharma is very much going to be part of your life, then it should be performed properly. If your Swadharma is disturbed, if your occupational duties are disturbed, and you're discontent, you're dissatisfied, then there is no meaning to your yoga practice. Why? Because all that disturbance would land into your meditation. So, how a Vedic culture was designed in such a way to be able to practice yoga, to be able to practice Ashtanga yoga. I'll give you one example. It's very important to be able to have dharana. Before that comes, after that comes dhyana. To be able to dharana means to hold on the object in our consciousness. It is very important to be sitting in a comfortable position for a long duration of time. And then only you can hold an object in your consciousness. Now, how many of we agree that these days it has become very difficult even to sit for an hour? How many of you agree? Now, why it has become difficult to sit for an hour? Why it has become difficult? The physical disturbance is a direct indication of your mental disturbance. Our mind is so agitated, because our mind is so agitated and restless, we cannot sit. Why our mind is agitated and restless? Because our sadharma is troubled. There could be other factors also. You can have, everything. If I start seeing from the Vedic paradigm, everything about us is troublesome. Our family life is troublesome. Our brahmachari life is troublesome. Our relationship with Guru is troublesome. Everything is troublesome about us, because we don't understand the paradigm of spiritual culture. Of course, it's very difficult to follow also in these days. So because our Swadharma is disturbed, our mind is disturbed. Because mind is disturbed, you cannot practice yoga. Because for yoga, to be able to do dharana, dhyana, samadhi, you need to be able to sit comfortably for a longer duration of time. After half an hour only, we become too restless, too disturbed. So it becomes very complicated. Is it making sense? So here Ashtanga Yoga begins with this first set of instruction. Now, what is the second set of instruction? Gramya dharma nivrittascha moksha dharma ratastatha mita medhyadanam shashvat vikta shema sevanam. Once you cease performing conventional religious practices, Gramya dharma nivrittas, sarva dharma parityaja, like this. Moksha dharma ratistatha, sarva dharma parityaja, mam ekam sharanamaja. That is the second line. Moksha dharma ratistatha, one should perform dharma only for the sake of moksha. Mam ekam sharanamaja. Mit medhyadanam shashwad. Medhyadanam shashwat means always. Medhyadana means meagerly. One should myth book कहते हैं ना, that is myth book. One should eat meagerly. Vivikta shema sevanam. Vivikta shema means peaceful, and sevana means dwelling. And one should live in a secluded place. One should cease performing conventional religious practices, give up all kind of rituals, rules, regulations that we follow follow only one dharma, mam ekam sharanam vraja. Ek shall the Supreme Personality guarded. Mit medhyadanam shashvat, eat meagerly, do not eat a lot. And then Prabhupada gives the formula in the purport, and live in a secluded place. Secluded place means live in the association of devotees. I'm just quoting exactly from Prabhupada purpose in Bhagavad Gita. How we should eat, Prabhupada quotes in the purport, second paragraph, second line. It is recommended in Vedic literatures that a yogi. How many of you are yogis here? Raise your hand. How many of you are yogis here? None of you are yogi? Why bhakti yogis? क्या भक्ति योगी हो नहीं हो? How many of you are yogis here? Raise your hand. How many of you are bhogis? अब योगी ने तो भोगी हुए ना फिर. अब ये योगी मतलब ये मत सोचना अष्टांग योगी के लिए कहा गया है. ये भक्ति योगी के लिए भी कहा गया है. That a yogi eat only half what he desires according to hunger. So when you talk to devotees, this Prabhuji, I am not overeating. Prabhupada is not talking about overeating. Prabhupada is talking about eating. In that eating, you make it 50%. देखो सब अनाज की प्रॉब्लम खत्म हो जाएगी समाज की अगर हम इस प्रकार से ईटिंग करने लगे. And there would be hardly any wastage, isn't it? Yogi eat only half what he desires according to his hunger. When one is so hungry, then he could devour 1 pound of foodstuff. Prabhupada gives a calculation also. So we don't argue about what Prabhupada is meant to say. If you can eat 1 pound, this is not overeating yet. Overeating will be 1.5 pound. If your quota is 1 pound, then Prabhupada says you should consume only half a pound and supplement this with 4 ounces of water, and 1/4 of the stomach should be left empty for passage of air in the stomach, ताकि वो घूम सके और washing machine चल सके. When we overstuff the washing machine, बेचारी stuck हो जाती है, so at times, and that's the reason we Brahmanas, most of us have stomach problem. We overstuff with prasadam. हमारा purification चल रहा है, prasadam purification. We highly appreciate and have a full-fledged faith in our prasadam purification. All right. What's the third set of instruction? Ahimsa satyam asteyam yavadartha parigraha brahmacharyam tapasaucham swadhyaya purushcharchanam. This is exactly like 13th chapter verses 8 to 12. The process of knowledge. Ahimsa, non-violence. Okay, let me ask you, what is non-violence according to Prabhupada? How Prabhupada defines non-violence? Anyone online? Any of our Prabhus and mothers who are on the online platform like to answer? What is non-violence as Prabhupada describes? Quoting Bhagavad Gita. Okay, no hands up here. Yes, Ishan.
Prabhupada says to stop somebody from performing his right is non-violence. So it is a natural position of living in pity to the Krishna consciousness.
Now you're saying complete. I thought you were talking about protecting somebody from performing his right. Restricting from giving vote. No, say the full thing. Correct. So to hinder anyone's spiritual life, that is called as violence. Non-violence is preaching. That's the idea. One should practice non-violence, be truthful, should avoid thieving, be satisfied with possessing as much as he needs for his maintenance. Now, these are subject matter which we really should think of and work on. How many of you would agree? If in case you have ever shifted your apartment from one place to another, and while shifting, you realize, yaar, itna sara useless item pada hai mere pe. How many of you have that realization? Raise your hand. While moving from one place to another, you had realized that, I have so much redundant item. All right. Now, this you might have realized. But before coming to Krishna consciousness, if you moved from one place to another, you still would not have disposed of that extra item. How many of you agree? You still would have carried that extra item. Kabhi bhavishya mein kaam aa jayega. How many of you agree? At least, hopefully, I'm hoping now, at least we have got this sense that at least we don't carry it. Understanding this unnecessary baggage, we don't want to do it. Dispose of. Like this is good practice. Once in a while, every 3 months, we should go and open our locker. How many of you agree? Somehow the nature of this world is, or nature of our consciousness is, our possession keep on increasing. We are so accustomed to possessing things. After some time, again our locker gets completely filled up, and then we say, "Arey, jagah hi nahi hai." How many of you had that experience? Jagah hi nahi hai. And clean it up, jagah banti hai, then after a few months, again jagah nahi hai. It automatically fills up, isn't it? Okay, he should abstain from sex life, perform austerity, be clean. I guess yesterday only I spoke something about cleanliness. We have a 1 week ultimatum. शुद्ध बन जाओ वरना गड़बड़ होगी. Study the Vedas, worship the supreme form of the supreme personality of Godhead. I'll make this point for everyone nonetheless. His Holiness, this is what told to me by Her Grace Mother Kamagiri, Srila Prabhupada disciple, very, very dear friend and I can say follower of His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj. So when she was telling me what cleanliness standard, and she told me how Bhakti Swami Maharaj would gauge somebody's cleanliness consciousness. So if he enters somebody's house, he would first enter the bathroom and he would take a look at the bathroom, every nook and corner. And if it's dirty, then he'll come and say, well, this is unclean place. Because imagine if somebody is coming, generally, what is the first place we clean? The public hall. That should be neat and clean. From wherever the guest is going to enter, that area should be cleaned. And maybe the public bathroom should be cleaned. But अंदर का सब रहने दो जैसा है. So mother told me he would first enter, those places to see what is the level of cleanliness, and then he would always emphasize cleanliness is next to godliness. I just cannot really understand. Maybe okay, we are struggling with our schedules, etc., etc. Sometimes we may not have time to clean certain things about it, but which is something so evident, so visible, yet ignored. What would it indicate? Please think about it. What would it indicate? Which is so visible, so evidently visible, it's so unclean. Yet we accept that, we live in that. Just like I was making an example of, eating prasadam. Some of us eat prasadam, after that we don't even clean it up. Other devotees have to come and sit in there. Other devotees sit also. Maybe because they're getting late for office, what can we do? Helplessness becomes sometimes a rule to accept. What would you say about this? What do you think? Something which is visible, something which is so evident, yet, we accept it and we live with it. What does it indicate about the individual? Yes, Shomlatu? Mode of ignorance. All right. What else? Careless. What else? Mode of ignorance is the answer, and the outcome of that is laziness. We are personally lazy, and nobody wants to take a step forward to bring about the change. Nobody wants to talk about it. Who cares? Let the mode of ignorance flourish. So these are things which are so important actually. Imagine all of this is having impact on our consciousness, particularly when we are chanting the holy names of the Lord. If we have cultivated mode of ignorance rest of the day, then what do you think we're going to do while chanting? How many of us doze off while sleeping, or how many of us are almost distracted most of the time while chanting? Have an experience that our mind is always reeling on something here and there. It's very difficult to focus. Those who are dozing off, mode of ignorance. Those whose mind is always distracted, that's mode of passion. How do you fix it? My question to you is, how do you fix it? Prabhuji, just continue chanting, it will get fixed automatically. What do you think about it? If that was the case, why would our scriptures, why would Kapila Dev here, why would Krishna and Bhagavad Gita speak about maintaining cleanliness, reading of scriptures? Why? If it has no impact on your conscience, ultimately you have to take shelter of the Lord by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Then why would speak about ahimsa, non-violence, satyam, santosha? Why would they speak about it? They'll only speak one thing. Just chant and chant and chant. Don't worry about anything. Be as unclean you are, doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. These are very essential things. And you can see from the lives of the great personalities how meticulous, how punctual, how clean they are. Everything that they do and everything around them. So, this is just some more ignorance. What can be said? All right. Another very interesting subject matter here is he should abstain from sex life. Should avoid thieving. The word for thieving is
Prabhuji, I have a question.
asatyam. Yes, who is speaking? Please introduce yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Neetu here.
Ritu. Neetu. Yes, Mother.
Yes. Prabhuji, you said about the cleanliness. So, my question is about the actual cleanliness and not the mind and heart. So, sometimes, we feel that we just should take shower and do puja and chanting, and then the house is not cleaned and the maid has not come. Or or should we wait for the maid? But by that time, it's very late. So what should be the ideal scenario? Should we just do puja when we want to, or we should? I mean, I'm really confused because I generally get late because of getting the house clean and everything clean, and then
Agreed.
have puja of the deity.
So in that, let's not discuss ideal, let's discuss practical, because ideal at times is not pragmatic. So ideal thing should be, it should be done as neatly, not as should be, everything should be neat and clean, and then we should get into it. But practical situation is, as you said, if in case we get involved into it, maid is going to come late, and when maid comes, she cleans it up, and then I start my program, that will be very late. So practical says, just, whatever situation you are, just take to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. As far as the chanting of the holy names of the Lord is, there is no rules and regulations that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the second verse of Shashtakam. So there's nothing that can prohibit one from chanting. I was speaking more on the subject matter of our state of consciousness. If in case we have been experiencing drowsiness often in our chanting, if we have found ourselves often distracted while chanting, mind is running here and there, this is a clear indication of mode of ignorance and mode of passion. Now, how do we fix mode of ignorance and mode of passion? Therefore, these things are given that we should think about it and should apply in our life. I'm not saying we can apply all of that at once. Let's take one subject matter, ahimsa, for a second. Let's work on it for next few weeks. Okay, we got some understanding, realization. Let's move to the next subject matter. That doesn't mean you give up ahimsa now. Let's focus on cleanliness and see how much I can work on it. We cannot apply all the things at once, but we can take a baby step by step, move forward. And sooner or later, we have to do it. Otherwise, over a period of time, we're going to get really frustrated. What's happening? I've been chanting for the last 20 years. Still, I continue to feel sleepy and drowsy. Where is that promise which was given that, as Rupa Goswami said, I wish I could have millions of ears, millions of tongues. I may continue to chant and vibrate the sound of Hare Krishna. When I chant the sound of Hare Krishna, Shri Radha Krishna begin to dance in the courtyard of my heart. When was going to happen? Talking about dancing, I'm not even awake. So that's the reason I'm kind of emphasizing. These are things which are given, cannot be ignored for too long. Somewhere, somehow we have to practice. And in your situation, of course, considering the practicality, look at the things that you can work on and how much you can apply in your life. All right, Mother? Okay, asatyam, thievery, a very interesting subject matter. Who understands the concept of communism? What is communism? Anyone? Sounds quite close to Kaminapan. It rhymes together. That you can definitely say the mundane communism is definitely Kaminapan, is a thievery. What is communism means? Communism means everything belongs to the state. Nothing is yours. Everything belongs to the state. So when Srila Prabhupada went to USSR, and then he met the professor, and then Prabhupada said, well, you are establishing communism. We also favor communism. Only difference in your and our communism is we talk about spiritual communism. What is spiritual communism? I spoke at length in Ishopanishad. Yes, Abhishek Prabhu. Can anyone hear you online if you speak?
Ishavasana principle.
Ishavasa principle. What is communism? What does it mean in action? What does it mean? Yeah, let Abhishek answer, then I'll call you upon. I'll repeat what Abhishek says here. Abhishek, quickly go ahead. What's your mind?
Basically, everything belongs to Lord Krishna. So whatever talents and skills and whatever I have, I utilize it for not self-realization, for the.
But that sounds like bhakti. You're giving definition of bhakti. Spiritual communism is bhakti. Okay. He's saying whatever we have got, we use in the service of the Lord. Like that is called as spiritual communism. Okay, who was there who was trying to speak? Mother Durati.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just in Upanishad. We have to use only our quota. We can't kind of use everything.
Sorry, your voice is breaking. I heard the word quota. Okay, so idea of spiritual communism is one should not stock up resources. One should only have things which is needed for one's maintenance, and additional, all that extra should be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is spiritual communism. And what Abhishek was giving definition of Bhakti Yoga. There's a difference in Bhakti Yoga and spiritual communism. The spiritual communism here refers to that you take what is needed for your maintenance, and whatever is additional should be utilized in the service of the Lord. And how the spiritual communism is established in our Vedic Sanskriti or culture is for a grahastha, it is mandatory to give charity. For a brahmachari, it is mandatory to do swadhyaya, reading, and that's where he dedicate his mind and senses. And whereas the grahastha, who is in a grahastha ashram, he dedicates his skill set by earning money and using it in the service of the Lord. Not 100%, using it certain portion, first taking out a portion for oneself for his maintenance or her maintenance, and then engaging in the service of the Lord. That is called as spiritual communism. And if somebody does not do that, he is called as a thief. In other words, let me be very blunt with that, because we just can't keep ignoring certain facts. If you're not making charity on a regular basis, then according to scriptural understanding, we are a thief, because we are just using everything for oneself. There has to be a compulsory. So much so, even this concept is so much utilized or engaged in the Christian culture. They call it a concept of tithing. Although this subject matter is described, the reason is given here. I don't know how much they know the reasoning, but they have a concept of tithing, which means every member who identifies with the church, who says, I'm a member of the census church, has to compulsory give somewhere around 10% tithing. Similarly, it's a question for us on members, those who identify with the Krishna conscious community. Do they do it? Because we cannot legislate, so there is a freedom of choice. But should we practice or not? Or for how long can we continue to avoid? On what excuses? Everyone should do it. That's the point. If not, let's take a look at the purport. First, second, third paragraph. The word asteyam is also very important for a yogi. Asteyam means to refrain from theft. In broader sense, everyone who accumulates more than he needs is a thief. Prabhu, can you share? Kya chal raha hai? According to spiritual communism, one cannot possess more than he needs for his personal maintenance. That is the law of nature. Anyone who accumulates more money or more possession than he needs is called a thief. And one who simply accumulates wealth without spending for sacrifice or for worship of the personality Godhead is a great thief. Once a businessman came to me, Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and he said, Swamiji, I have so much business, I have so much, wealth, etc., but I have so much anxiety. I'm always in anxiety ridden. Prabhupada said, well, you need a solution for anxiety? He said, yes, Swamiji, that's the reason I came to you. Please give me the solution for anxiety. Prabhupada said, well, you give all your wealth to us and we'll take away all your anxiety. Well, no, that's not possible. Prabhupada said, because you're a thief. Every thief would be in anxiety, yes or no? A thief cannot be without anxiety. Because you're a thief, therefore you're anxiety. So somebody else came, another businessman. He said, Swamiji, I have some Ambuja or Mittal cement company like that. So Prabhupada asked, so from where do you get cement? He said, well, we break the mountains. From there we get cement. Prabhupada said, from where do you get the mountain? Well, this is all as a gift of the Lord. The Prabhupada said, oh, you are a thief. Why? He said, why, Swamiji? Well, everything you get from God. What do you give to God? He said, Swamiji, I do give some charity. Prabhupada said, all right, you are a small thief. You are a small thief. So why it is very interesting, why did Prabhupada say small thief? Based on this definition. You're giving something, but you're still hoarding a lot. And the idea of thief is that's the idea. According to spiritualism, one cannot possess more than he needs for his personal maintenance. When would you begin to take shelter of the Lord then? If everything about my life will be taken care of by myself only. My bank balance, my family members, my relatives, how does it really work actually? So that's not the idea. Of course, I am not indicating or suggesting, even if I say it's not going to make a difference, it's not so easy to do it. I'm not saying that 100% contribute or 100% donate. You need to have certain life security for that. But sometimes you become too possessed about it, too worried about it. and what we should be doing, we fail to do it. And all of it is evidently visible in our Krishna conscious practice, like chanting the holy names of the Lord. Next, Maunam Sadasana Jayastharyam Prana Jayashanahi Pratyahara Chendriyanam Vishayan Manasahadi. Maunam Shanti Ashanti. So Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, Maunam is only speaking about Krishna consciousness. Those yogis who pretend to be Mauni, they spread Ashanti by writing gibberish. Sad asana jayaha, which means, acquiring steadiness by practicing different yogic postures. Sthairyam. Okay, anyways, why I'm going to Sanskrit? Let's do the translation. One must observe silence, acquire steadiness by practicing different yogic postures, control the breathing of the vital air, withdraw the senses from the sense objects, and thus concentrate the mind on the heart. So this is according to Ashtanga Yoga. This is so essential that there's no meaning to Ashtanga Yoga if you cannot really sit for a longer period of time. Now you may say, Prabhuji, हम तो भक्ति योगा में हैं, तो हमारे लिए क्या? So yes, there are a lot of what do you say, concessions given in Bhakti Yoga. ठीक है, if you cannot sit and chant, you have health concerns, no problem. At least chant. And rest of the day, try to engage yourself in Krishna service. At the end of the day, ena tena prakarena maha Krishna niveshat. By hook and crook, one should be able to engage one's mind in devotional service. That's the idea. But for Ashtanga Yogi, because he has to sit and he has to really, go into the stage of dhyana, so he has to first control his body. He has to perfect, if not all, at least some asana where he can sit in that posture for a long period of time. And then when he sits, then through the breathing exercise, he's able to bring his mind, in a certain state of stability, and then he can begin the step of dharana, holding the object. All right. The most important aspect of sense control is controlling sex life. That is called brahmacharya. Text number 6, Sat Chakra yoga system has been described here. Swadhish, okay, translation. Fixing the vital air and the mind over the 6 circles of the vital air circulation within the body. Thus, concentrating one's mind on the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personal Godhead is called as Samadhi or Samadhan of the mind. You can figure it out in the Papari also later on. What are the 6 circles? Sat Chakra yoga system. Where does Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita? Sat Chakra yoga system. 8th chapter, concluding verses, where it talked about how different yoga practitioners attain moksha at the end of life. Text number 7. Ete anyascha patibhe mano dushtam masatpatham buddhaya yunjita shanke jita prano hyatandriya atandritaha. By this process or any other true process, to control the contaminated. So the idea is mano dushtam asatpatham. Asat, dushta, contaminated, attracted to the temporary. One has to withdraw the mind. One has to practice withdrawing the mind from asat and contaminations and purify and develop its attraction or attachment towards sat. That is the whole practice. The essential point, reading the purport, that the mind which is contaminated by material attraction has to be bridled and concentrated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text number 8. Suchau deshe pratishthapya vijitasanasana tasmin swashti samasena rajukaya samabhyaset. After controlling one's mind, setting postures, one should spread a seat in a secluded and sanctified place, sit there in easy posture, keeping the body erect, and practice breath control. Going back to the mother Nitu or Ritu, mother had asked a question to our subject matter. Maybe the house is not clean. When we get up in the morning, we have to practice chanting. At least clean up that area where you're going to chant. Sprinkle some water, wipe it off, so the tamoguna goes off, and you should have a neat and clean asana. And now sit on that asana, and now you practice your spiritual practice. Text number 9. Pranasya shodhayan margam pura kumbhakare chake patikulena va chittam yatha sthiram achanchalam. Now pranayam has been described, how to perform pranayam. The yogi should clear the passage of vital air by breathing in the following manner. First, everyone, then hold the breath. And finally, You know, or you can reverse the process. Sorry, I have to speak while doing the pranayam. So, or reverse the process. The yogi can first exhale, then hold the breath outside, and finally, this is done so that the mind may become steady and free from external disturbances. So, I've spoken about this previously in the morning program, 4:30 Brahma Muhurta time. If in case we're experiencing a lot of agitations on the mind, there's no point of continuing chanting. Hold and halt, and then do some pranayama for some time. Now, this is going to require some endeavor, some real determination. Because the moment you begin pranayama, your mind would agitate like anything. Why? Because now, through that breathing exercise, your mind will be withdrawn. And while you're doing pranayama, it's very important to focus on your breath. Experience as if the breath going inside, touching the different limbs or the organs of the body, and then exhale. And then you do it a few times, immediately you see your mind has been disconnected. And then you can take to practice of the chanting like that. It really helps. Prabhupada gives the details of it. Puraka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka. आप लोग पढ़ लीजिएगा अपने आप. Text number 10. The yogis who practice such breathing exercise are very soon free from all mental disturbances, such as gold when put into fire and fanned with air becomes free from all impurities. Somebody is really disturbed by sensual desires or sexual desires, they can also take to this practice like that. Okay, text number 11. Now, what is, okay, so far, Kapil Dev has spoken about Ashtanga Yoga and what is the practice for Ashtanga Yogi, how you should practice. Now he's going to talk about 4-step solution. Pranayame dahe dosham dharanabhe kilbishan pratyaharena samsargan dhyanena ishwaran gunan. So how does this whole practice function? Pranayam, dahe dosha. Dosha means kapha, pitta, vata. If you regularly do this, according to the science which is described here, your body would be healthy. Dharana, bhischa kilbishan. Kilbishan means dharana, which means concentrating the mind. One will be freed from sinful activities. Pratyaharena, withdrawing the senses. Samsargan, which means for material association. So your attraction for sense objects will go away. Dhyanina, Ishwaran Guran. And by meditating on Ishvara, one will be able to transcend the modes of material nature. A very important purpose. Time is running short. You do read out the first paragraph. Prabhupada talks about Ayurvedic medical science and 3 doshas, Kapha, Pitta, Vayu, which the modern science does not understand at all. And how we can fix this Kapha, Pitta, Vata dosha. Text number 12. When the mind is perfectly purified by this practice of yoga, one should concentrate on the tip of the nose with a half-closed eyes and see the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone have ever tried this kind of a meditation? Okay. How long, Abhishek Prabhu, could you do? Hardly a minute. Anyone else? So it's a very difficult practice. It takes a lot of practice to be able to practice this. Your eyes will begin to pain. Your head will begin to pain in the beginning. But it really works. It really works if you're able to do it. I tried, but I don't do it often. Once in a while I do it. I could do it for a while, but not long. We can try that out. If somebody needs to really increase his attention span. All right, text number 13. So until text number 12, Ashtanga Yoga process has been described. From text number 13 comes the beauty of the Lord. Well, because so far the discussion on Mayavad has not come, so there's no point for me to speak on Mayavad right now. We'll continue with this beautiful description of the Lord. So a yogi has to have an object of dharana. And that object of dharana has to be not void, impersonalism, but formless, void or formless, but a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's talk about, what do I do? Should I speak of the beauty right now? Let's get into the beauty. We'll talk about Mayavad and impersonalism next time. The differences between them. Okay, let's take a look. Text number 13 to text number 20. Beautiful discussion. The Supreme Personality Godhead has a cheerful, lotus-like countenance with ruddy eyes like the interior of a lotus and a swarthy body like the petals of a blue lotus. He bears a conch, discus, and mace in 3 of his hands. Prabhupada writes very beautiful thing in the purport in the second paragraph. The color of the personality regarded Krishna is described here as Nilotpala Dala, meaning that is like that of the lotus flower, with petals tinted blue and white. People always ask why Krishna is blue. The colors of the Lord has not been imagined by an artist. It is described in authoritative scriptures. The Brahma Samhita also, the color of Krishna's body is compared to that of a bluish cloud. The color of the Lord is not a poetical imagination. There are authoritative descriptions in the Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and many of the Puranas of the Lord's bodies, his weapons, and all of the paraphernalia. The Lord's appearance is described here as Padma Garbhanu Ikshanam. His eyes resemble the inside of a lotus flower, and his four hands he holds the four symbols: conch shell, discus, mace, and lotus. Text number 14. His loins are covered by a shining cloth, yellowish like the filaments of a lotus. On his breast, he wears the mark of Srivasa, a curl of a white hair. The brilliant Kaustuva gem is suspended from his neck. He also wears around his neck a garland of attractive sylvan flowers, and a swarm of bees, intoxicated by his delicious fragrance, hums about the garland. His feathers superbly adorned with a pearl necklace, a crown, a pair of armlets, bracelets, and anklets. Very beautiful description in the purport. Prabhupada talks about spiritual world, the nature of spiritual world. How many of you acknowledge the moment you pluck the flower begins to die? And it's a matter of time, the flower becomes useless. But Prabhupada says, well, in the spiritual world, even if you pluck the flower, nothing happens to the flower. Flower remains fragrant as it is because everything is absolute. Therefore, when from those flowers the garland is made, the bee sees no difference in humming around that flower garland or on the plant because both have the same absolute nature. That's a point. Beautiful point, Prabhupada writes. The significance of spirituality is that everything is eternal and inexhaustible. Everything taken from everything remains everything, or has been stated, as has been stated. In the spiritual world, 1 minus equal ones, 1 plus equal ones. And is it really a difficult concept to understand? If I ask you a question like that, it's not at all difficult concept to understand. And what is an evidence? That it makes all the sense. Am I making a little complicated here? How is it easy to understand that even if you pluck the flower, nothing going to happen to the flower? It remains absolute as it is. On the strength of the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, how can you say this is so true? It has to be like this. There's no other way possible. Anyone? What is the idea? How can you understand spiritual reality by observing the material reality? Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes. नामे भक्ता प्रणश्यति तो भगवान वहां पे फूलों को भी नष्ट नहीं होने देते. ये कह रहे हो तुम?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Okay, Name. So Prabhu is
Hare
saying,
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Krishna says, Name Bhakta Pranashyati. So therefore, भगवान किसी भी चीज को नाश नहीं होने देते कि भगवान ने प्रतिज्ञा ली है, मैं किसी को नाश नहीं होने दूंगा. अरे, go more. Okay, somebody is saying, who is speaking?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, Mother Dandavat.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It is because of the time factor, because there is no time factor, Krishna says.
Okay. How do you understand there is no time factor? That is true. Correct. Krishna says. Well, where does Krishna say there is no time factor? Natad bhasate shuryo nashashanka na pavaga. He says no sun, no moon. And Prabhupada says no electricity required. But yes, there is no time factor here. What is the reference? And the reference goes to chapter number 15, verse number 1. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Udvamulam Madha Shakham Ashwatham Prahuravayam Chandam Yasya Paranani Yastam Vedasa Vedave. A very, very important verse to meditate. So here Krishna says, Udvamulam Madha Shakham. The material world is like a banyan tree which is upside down, whose root is upward and branches are downward. And then in the following verse, Krishna says, this material world is nothing but a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So in the material world, if you pluck the flower and flower dies in the spiritual world, it should be other way around. So if you're having a relationship crisis in the spiritual world, it's going to be all blissful. And in any relationship, you're going to have some crisis here, whatever it is. In the spiritual world, there is no envy, there is only love, there is no hatred, there is only compassion. Like that, that's the nature of the spiritual world. Just by looking at the material world and the things of this, the nature of the material world, dukhalayam, ashashvatam, is sukhalayam and sat. Satchit Ananda, not Sukhalayam, Anandaya, Anandamaya Vyasat. So, like that, we can understand that's how Prabhupada is explaining the spiritual mathematics here. Hare Krishna. So, never get disheartened when you go through troubles in material life. You can console yourself. Just this lifetime. I'm going back home, back to Godhead. No more trouble. And this is a good motivation, isn't it? So, the more your trouble is beneficial for you. Because that much degree your determination will come, I have to go back home. Why? Somebody may say, okay, no problem. Once in a while, if I get a problem, I can tolerate. But why don't we have a life where you have no problem only? And that is what Krishna promises. Text number 16. Okay. His loins and hips encircled by a girdle. He stands on the lotus of his devotee's heart. He is the most charming to look at. And his serene aspect gladdens the eyes and souls of the devotees who behold him. Wow. Darshani Atmamam. The Lord is so beautiful that devotee yogi does not wish to see anything else. 17. The Lord is eternally very beautiful, and he is worshipable by all the inhabitants of every planet. He is ever youthful and always eager to bestow his blessings upon his devotees. Beautiful purpose, huh? I'll read certain parts of the purport, but please read out at your leisure. Second paragraph. The Lord's facial expression always indicates that he is ready to show favor and benediction to the devotees. Yes? Let's take a look at Vrindavan Chandra. What do you think? Look at the Vrindavan Chandra, or look at Jagannath Ji, or look at any one of them. What does it look like? Does it hold true what Prabhupada is saying? Their facial expression always indicates that he is ready to show favor and benediction to the devotees. For the non-devotees, however, he is silent. So devotees will see the Lord, they'll see, hey, Lord is smiling. Non-devotees will not have that experience. You know? So for a devotee, Lord is always, that's what Prabhupada is saying, he's silent. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, although he acts equally to everyone, Nami Bhakta Pranashriti, like that is mentioned. Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. Text number 18. The glory of the Lord is always worth singing, for his glories enhance the glories of his devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality Godhead and upon his devotees. One should meditate on the eternal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed. When one is accustomed, second line of the purport, to thinking one of the innumerable forms of the Lord, Krishna, Vishnu, Rama, Narayana, etc., he has reached the perfection of yoga. Okay, some beautiful descriptions. Second last paragraph. Every paragraph is important. Let's take a look at the second last paragraph. Another significant word in this verse is Punya Shloka Yashashkaram. The devotee is called Punya Shloka. One becomes purified by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So one can become purified simply by chanting the name of a holy devotee. The pure devotee of the Lord and the Lord himself are non-different. It is sometimes feasible to chant the name of a holy devotee. This is a very sanctified process. Lord Chaitanya was once chanting the holiness of the gopis when his students criticized him. Next paragraph. The beauty of the Lord is that devotees who are connected with his activities are also glorified. Arjuna is glorified, Prahlad, Janak Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, many other devotees were not even in the renounced order of life, but were householders. Some of them, such as Prahlad, Bali Maharaj, were born from demonic families. Prahlad Maharaj's father was a demon, Bali Maharaj was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, but still they became famous because of their association with the Lord. Anyone who is eternally associated with the Lord is glorified with the Lord. The conclusion is that the perfect yogi should always be accustomed to seeing the form of the Lord. Okay, so how many of you have that experience just because of connection with the Lord? Even we have become some worthwhile. How many of you have that experience? वरना मनुष्य को सिर्फ जीवन में एक बार माला पहनाई, दो बार माला पहनाई जाती है, सॉरी एक बार नहीं, आई टेक माय वर्ड बैक. मनुष्य को जीवन में सिर्फ दो बार माला पहनाई जाती है. एक बार शादी के शोक या दुख में, सुख में, और दूसरी बार मरने के बाद, परंतु भक्त को प्रतिदिन पहनाई जाती है आदर सम्मान के कारण। अब वो पूछ सकता है, भाई तेरा क्या है? उसका सिर्फ एक ही है, व्हाट इज हिज ग्रेटनेस? His connection is surrender to the Lord. And that's the point. I'm just giving an example here. So like that, the devotee is also glorified. Text number 19. Thus always merged in devotional service, the yogi visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, or sitting within him. For the pastimes of Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. So the yogi meditates like that. Text number 20. And fixing in mind on the eternal form of the Lord, yogi should not take collective view of all his limbs, but should fix the mind on each individual limb of the Lord. So in this purpose through this verses, where dharana and dhyana has been discussed, Prabhupada says chanting of the holy name of the Lord is more easier and effective process than this process of meditation like that. Text number 21. The devotee should first concentrate his mind on the Lord's lotus feet, which are adorned with the marks of a thunderbolt, a goat, a banner, and a lotus. The splendor of their beautiful ruby nails resembles the orbits of the moon and dispels the thick gloom of one's heart. Purpose in the purpose, second paragraph. The concrete description of the eternal form of the Lord is given here. The Lord's soul is depicted with distinctive lines resembling a thunderbolt, a flag, lotus flower, and a goat. The luster of his toenails, which are brilliantly prominent, resembles the light of the moon. If a yogi looks upon the marks of the Lord's soul and of the blazing brilliance of his nails, the marks of the Lord, then he can be freed from the darkness of ignorance and material existence. Can you just visualize the form? What we have read? Maybe let me try walking you through with a visualization form. So please close your eyes. I'm not good at it, but let's try. Everyone? So there is a beautiful form of Krishna, which is ever youthful and has a bluish complexion. Well, I'll speak of the form of the Krishna here. On his chest, he is wearing a necklace bedecked with Kaustubha gem. Well, I should talk about Vishnu form. Vishnu form is here because then Krishna Vrindavan form will not be there. I will speak about Vishnu form. So imagine a bluish complexion form of Lord Narayana Vishnu, that is the same of Krishna in that sense, has 4 hands holding a conch, holding a club, holding a disc, and holding a lotus flower. And his arms are decorated with different anklets and bracelets. He has a beautiful flower garland. He has a Shiva mark on his chest. He has a necklace bedecked with Kaustubha gem. He is wearing a beautiful golden crown, and his neck is also bedecked with many pearl necklaces. He is wearing a yellow color shining dhoti like this. And he has, let's begin, that's about his cloth and external. And let's come down to his lotus feet. His feet has a mark of a thunderbolt, a goad, which is used for pushing, a banner, and a lotus. And his toenails are like a ruby nails, and they are emanating incredible effulgence from the nails of the Lord. Just meditating this much, Prabhupada says, can destroy the darkness of ignorance in material existence. How does it look like? Amazing form, huh? The sparkling toenails. All right. So now everyone's superhero would have been changed from whichever superheroes were there. Text number 2. The blessed Lord Shiva becomes all the more blessed by bearing on his head the holy water of the Ganges, which has its source in the water that washed the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord's feet act like thunderbolts hurled to shatter the mountains of sin stored in the mind of the meditating devotee. One should therefore meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a long time. So from this verse onward, I would pause here. From this verse onwards, the discussion is on the dhyana. So we just did our meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord, where his nails like ruby nails emanating the spiritual effulgence, which can destroy the ignorance of a conditioned living entity. And now different limbs would be described and the meditation on that. So we'll do that meditation and that discussion next time. We'll pause here for today at text number 22. Just to do a quick recap, Kapila Dev began to speak about the process of Ashtanga Yoga, and then he began to speak about the rules and regulation that should be practiced, followed by those who consider themselves to be yogi, either Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. There's no difference between Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. There's a little difference in just a practice. Otherwise, the goal is same. And Yama, Niyama, Prana, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, even a devotee has to undergoes through that. But just the application of it is a little different. After describing about the steps of the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, and then Kapil Dev from the text number 13 began to describe the beautiful form of the Lord. That's an object of dharana. And now he's discussing about dhyana. So Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara. All these 5 stages have been described. Then dharana has been described, who is the object of our meditation. Dhyana is what is beginning, and we'll conclude with samadhi like that. So we'll see that discussion next time when we meet. I will pause here. Although I was thinking about Mayavad versus impersonalism, we couldn't discuss this today. Some other time I'll take it on this topic of Mayavadis versus impersonalists. Who are Mayavadis, who are impersonalists? What is the common thread? And what is the distinction between both of them? And a little bit of analysis of how Prabhupada uses these words in his writings. With that, I'll pause here. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions or any comments from anyone? Okay. All right. So thank you all for your kind attention. We conclude